All right. Yeah. Um, like I mentioned in the chat, I'm trying the webinar method, so it's a little bit more than just a regular Teams meeting. I think it's going to work great for our purposes, but it's different. It's just a little bit different. So
Yeah.
um, I am here twice, kinda. I don't know how it's working. I don't know how it's working,
Right.
honestly. So I'll just, if it's working, it's working. That's good enough for me. I'll make sure I can share real quick. That would be a good thing. Um, I don't remember. We may, if we have talked before or met, I apologize, but sometimes I can forget things. But have we had a chance to meet before?
No, we haven't.
Oh, okay,
So
nice.
I went to some Techlahoma meetups like 3 years ago, and I haven't
Okay,
done one since. So, uh,
yeah.
but
Nice. Okay, well, great. Well, it's good, very good to meet you, and nice to have you here. I hope it'll be a um, useful occasion. Are you a Power BI user? Do you do stuff with it?
a little bit.
Okay,
Um,
great.
so I work in like operations technology, so
Okay,
that's not like our primary tool, but for
right.
some things it seems like it's nice. But I'm very,
Mhm.
very new and I'm not really familiar with what fabric is exactly. I mean,
I
I see it here, but
understand. Yeah,
yeah.
I understand. Um, that makes sense. We need to do one meeting specifically about fabric. So um, that is something I'm going to be taking notes while we do this, and yeah, that's the first thing I'll write down. Then again, it's not going to change a lot of Power BI users' lives, especially right off the bat. So um, yeah. So, but it wouldn't hurt for us to at least like talk about it in one of our upcoming meetings.
So do you guys meet typically?
Well, for a few years, we were really good about meeting on the third Thursday of every month. And I am going to work to get us back on that schedule here in 2025. We did that through about, and let in my otter here. We did that through about, yeah, last February, about a year ago. And then
I
I just
see.
fell off the wagon. Yeah, horrible wagon falling. Um, yeah, so we'd like to get back on that. And Wilson, actually, you're here, right, Wilson?
Hey,
Yeah, he was actually a good part of prodding and asking, like, hey, when are we gonna meet again? So I really appreciated him and his persistence on that because it's hard. Of course, we're all very busy, and so that's what made it hard, right? But it's also very useful to it's useful to me and just to connect. It's fun to connect with people. So
Yeah.
um, yeah. Still planning a couple of in-person things. There was one we were trying to get lined up for OKC, and we've got a great place that can host us, but Thursdays were bad. So for that one, we might we might switch over to a Wednesday, see if they see who that could work for. And then we definitely want to do one in Tulsa and one in Oklahoma City this year, sometime in person. So maybe for a few people. Oh,
Okay, yeah,
Taguma's
you
letting me
guys are in
know.
Tulsa.
Oh. Oh, do I need to hit yes, I'm actually in OKC, but Taguma, yeah, my co-leader is Tulsa based. So got the two big cities covered. Let's see. Taguma, I'm sorry, I just saw a note from Taguma saying she couldn't get on. I think she might be on now. Taguma, are you okay now? Oh, there we are.
Yes, I
Ah,
I
perfect. Nice.
joined via the public link.
Aha. Okay. I
Yeah, I had
probably need
trouble
to
with
be
the other
keeping
one.
an eye out if I need to admit people or what, but okay. That should be fine. I might be able to make you a presenter. I can make you a presenter if I need to, or anybody else. So we're using. This is the first time I was just telling Chrisney that this is the first time I'm using the webinar style of meeting in Teams. I'm excited to learn it. I think it's going to be great, but um, there was a little bit of I'm glad I joined about 10 minutes early because it took me about 5 minutes to figure out how to get on correctly. So yeah, yeah. Welcome everybody. I know from
Thank you.
re- responses on Meetup and the webinar also does a good job of keeping registrations that we're expecting a few more people to join us. You know how probably things are around noon. Folks are trying to take their lunch break or trying to wrap up a little morning work. And so I'm sure we'll have others join on. But since we only have an hour, I'd probably like to go ahead and dive in. This is our resuscitating meeting back from February of 2024. And so this is really the first one we've done in a year. And Taguma and we met in January and we were like, we're going to do better. And I mean, and mostly it's me, but anyway, she was pinging me, but we're going to be more consistent in 25. We are still kind of targeting those third Thursdays. And well, and I know we plan on doing we're going to meet at least quarterly,
Right.
and yeah, there you go. We're going to meet at least quarterly. So this is our first quarter meeting. Sorry, Taguma, I kind of forgot. And what we hope to do is every other quarter meet in person. So we were supposed to do an in-person one, and what I ran into some difficulties with the facility because Thursdays were kind of bad for them, and so we went back and forth so often that finally we were just like, all right, let's just do a virtual meeting and kind of get things back rolling again. So I will maybe at the end, Taguma, if you could at the end of the meeting, if you could share about when our next one is planned for, that would be
Absolutely.
helpful because thank you very
Absolutely.
much. Awesome.
Will do. And just
Yeah,
one quick thing to add on to
please.
that.
Yeah.
For
Mhm.
the in-persons, we're targeting one in Oklahoma City and one in Tulsa, just so people can
Exactly.
attend based on where they are in the Oklahoma area.
Exactly. But we'll try to do it in the kind of in the middle of the day so that if you can and want to travel over, that's great. You know, you could have time to make it without leaving at dark 30 uh, and get back home at a reasonable time. But sometimes, sometimes it's good to come over and people have business reasons to travel or family or personal reasons too. So always kind of a fun thing when we do it that way. So there a lot has happened, obviously, in the world of Power BI in the last year. Part of what is so useful to me about this group is it gives kind of helps me stay up to date with some of the latest features. Well, I think we'll have to dedicate part of our next meeting to that, or talk about it in the community pages that we have, because there's just so much, and I would love to. Probably after in the question and answer period, we could definitely, one of the questions will be like, what do you want to talk about? And I know I've seen a few things in the chat threads, um, can show you kind of where those are. And yeah, but there's just a whole world out there now to talk about. And I know some of you may be like, yeah, I'm using Fabric. Others, I don't even know what Fabric is. We could talk about that. There's just so much going on, but I will go ahead and dive into this presentation since this is kind of our main content and we only have an hour. If you have questions at any time, feel free to drop them in the chat. I do have it open here on another screen. And then also you could raise your hand and also just barge in if you want to, just start talking. It's welcome questions anytime. This presentation will be, it's called Advanced Data Visualization Techniques, but I don't want I want you to think it's too advanced. I bet many of you will see things that you have done before, but I wanted to try to pull together, like we do so many bar charts and line charts and pie charts maybe, that after a while it can feel like, well, I use those things because my users know how to read them really well. And that's a valuable thing. Actually, that means a lot because if your users can't interpret the visualizations you create, they're not very valuable. But there are there are some visuals in Power BI that are just maybe a step above, just one step beyond kind of the basics, that I think people can learn to read very well. And there are interesting ways of combining them that don't overwhelm people right off the bat, but also make a lot of next level detail very accessible when they ask for it. So I wanted to talk about some of those tips and tricks, and I hope through this process that whether you're an occasional Power BI user, sometimes you make reports, or maybe a more advanced, a little bit more intermediate at least level uh, Power BI user, you can maybe pick up a few tips and tricks And if you are that more, a more advanced user, more experienced, love for you to chime in and offer your tips and tricks as well. So just to let you know who I am, since we haven't been together in a while, I guess it's been 8 years in Power BI and consulting now, probably. But I did want to just mention, I guess I have roots in both the Oklahoma City and Tulsa area, because I originally gave this presentation in Tulsa, and I am a BA Tiger from class of odd, or whatever we say. So quite a while ago. Before we dive into kind of, hey, what can I do with data visualizations? It's a good idea. We won't spend long on this because you could clearly do a full presentation on it. But even if we're doing advanced data visualizations, there's just a couple of things that always a good idea to keep in mind. Who's going to be consuming this, right? What are you trying to communicate to them? So can I communicate that in a way that I know that they understand? So some other things to consider, how familiar they are with how to read that data visualization we're choosing. A lot of us learned one of the advantages of those bar charts and line charts is somewhere in education, a lot of us had an opportunity to learn to read those or create those, and so people can feel very comfortable with that. How much detail does that person need? So some of these visualizations can bake in a lot of detail. So this kind of, just ask how much do they really need at their hands, and where will they be? In this case, setting means, where will they be consuming this? Will it be on a big, display or on their phone? How much interactivity do they need to have with it? Yeah, so again, kind of, we don't want that to limit us to only just the plain Jane vanilla data visualization. So we don't have to be afraid to try new things, but do be prepared to help explain and teach and coach, instead of just kind of, we're going to throw a bunch of box and whisker plots at them and say, you should learn, you should learn to read these. And then always the good design practices still apply. So I'll kind of start. I did an animation on this, so I've got to start at the slides now. So try not to overload them. Using those colors consistently. By the way, this is not meant to be an example of good design principles. I forgot. This is just like, a bunch of default graphs put together from probably from Power BI like 8 years ago now, right? But yeah, there's these cool things. If you want to learn more about how to do beautiful data visualization design, it actually applies to all design. I really enjoyed learning about the Gestalt principles of design. You also sound really cool when you go around saying Gestalt, but essentially, it's sort of a study of how we see things and how we perceive things, like as human beings, and we see things in 3 dimensions. Colors tend to catch our eye. Things that are close together tend to look like they're related to each other. Those kinds of concepts, and they're really fun to play with, because you can learn those and then look at something and go, oh, I know why that looks good now. Kind of understand the why. It's pretty cool. So yeah, try to avoid this guy right here if you can. That was just to be scared. Oh no. Stop it. Okay, there we go. So first, we're just going to look at, here's some visuals that are already there in Power BI, but they're a little unsung. And I have slides here to kind of structure the conversation, but actually we'll be looking at Power BI Desktop quite a bit as we go through here. So here's a few of our unsung heroes. Many of you, you've probably used them before. It wouldn't surprise me if a few of you said, yeah, I tried to use that and my boss said, I don't like that, change it. So that's okay though. I think I still we should know that they're there. So we'll look at scatter plots, tree maps, ribbon charts, and waterfall charts, which are all just waiting patiently over here in the visualizations pane for us to grab anytime. So this is just a screenshot, and we'll look at an example here in a second. But our scatter chart, this is one that most of us, again, did have a chance to see in education. I think we just don't think about it often enough. You can, so a lot of people know how to read it, and it can easily show data in, obviously, you have to have at least, actually 2 dimensions to plot the dots on the 2 axes. It's pretty easy though for it to encode 3 or even 4 dimensions, if we need to. And in this particular example, if we were trying to ask the question, which of our categories don't follow the pattern, visually, this really does make things jump out pretty fast. Yeah, I guess yeah, rather than asking for feedback, I'll just say, we can see that, hey, what's going on with tables here, right, at this level. So, nice. Okay, Wilson says the scatter plots are probably his most used. So good job. I think sometimes we as chart makers just don't think about them enough, right? To see how, thanks, Wilson, to see how those kind of look here in Power BI. Um, this is a slightly different set of data. It actually, I think it's the Power BI sample data for some financials, and scatter charts are pretty easy to set up with the product is the values. X-axis is going to be sales in this case, and then the Y-axis is going to be profit. So we can compare, like, okay, we might be selling a lot of something, but are we actually making a profit on it, right? Here it is with Velo, this pink dot right here in the United States. It happens to be in that territory. Like our margin, we kind of really can spot a low margin item pretty quickly that doesn't seem to perform as well. Or if we want to look for high margin things, we can kind of like direct our eyes more to this quadrant up in the upper left and try to see, like, hey, who really turns a profit for us pretty well? These VTTs over in France. Yeah, make that pretty easy. Looking at the, I guess we'll come back to scatter plots uh, to show some more advanced things that you can do with them. But I guess before we kind of move off of just the core scatter plot, any other comments? I love the thanks for the chat. Keep it coming. And yeah, anybody want to chime in? And I guess on this webinar thing, tell me if you can't unmute. That might be the case, actually. Okay, some of you might not be able to unmute, and it's okay. So if you can just put your comments in the chat, that'll be great. Thanks. All right, so then we move on to the tree map. The tree map, funny enough, really is this similar concept for um, similar concept for a pie chart, except it's using rectangular shapes in sort of a fixed space rather than that circle. I know if you have studied data visualizations much at all, you'll often find a lot of negative press on the pie chart, and it's because of, again, the way humans kind of perceive relative sizes. We're not actually very good at interpreting angles. um, there are some other issues that go along with it. It's not that space efficient. You actually end up with kind of a lot of white space around it, which if you've ever tried to plug one into Power BI, you often find that I'm trying to add data labels, but then it makes my donut look like a donut hole, right? It's way too small. So the tree map solves for a lot of those things. You can really pack a lot of useful information in here. I'll go back to my slide to kind of show the annotations about it. But it's very space efficient. It shows hierarchies really well, right? I can tell the dark blue things go together. They will tend to be not only colored alike, but aligned. Those are two of the Gestalt principles of design, of keeping alike things together. I clearly see different kinds of apples here, in the colors, but then they are categorized in some kind of useful way, let's say, subdivided within those categories. How do we break it down, right? And again, very easy to label and also very easy to click. I know a lot of us use, slicers to filter things. Really, the tree map makes a pretty effective live slicer when you want to just show me this one particular subcategory, right? Or I think, well, yeah, I was going to say it's easy to pick a whole group of things, and maybe it's not, but it can make a nice slicer. I guess I can quickly pick all of those things. So probably with a legend or some other bar chart, I could make that easy for users to pick out things. All right. Yeah, that's the tree map. Looking at the chat, I see some comments about box and whisker, and don't worry, we are going to get there. So yeah, that's a little bit farther down. With another kind of chart that is built in there is called a ribbon chart. So you may have played with this. It probably feels a little familiar right away. It looks a lot like a stacked column chart, and that is what it is based on, but it has a few special features that make it vary from a stacked column chart. Number one being, the most obvious thing is that it's going to have these ribbons that sort of connect the bar segments from month to month and kind of show them side by side. This one is going to be a lot easier to show in Power BI Desktop itself. Yeah, anyway, so a cool thing about this is, like, for example, on this particular segment, if I hover my tooltip over on the ribbon, it will show me what it was the month prior, what it is in the current month, and then what that change was, and if any rank change happened. So that's really cool. It kind of can show me those differences. If I look at a column chart and a ribbon chart, oops, side by side, which I clearly did not, ribbon and waterfall. I'm sorry, guys, I lost it. Oh, well, no problem. To compare it to the column chart, though, the big difference is that the column chart keeps the categories always in the same order. So looking at this bar and the legend, it's going to show me that it's always going United States, Mexico, Germany, France, Canada, and it maintains that order all the time. By contrast, the ribbon chart will sort things, kind of stack rank them month by month. And since they are jumping around and moving places on you, it keeps those ribbons to help your eye follow the course of, where did Canada go? Okay, it jumped from in May, it was the very worst, to in June, it was the very best. My tooltip is getting in the way, and we're going to get to that in a second. Yeah, so the ribbon is can be a very helpful chart when order and rank is really important to emphasize, and the change in rank is important. Just also then to show, I don't have to just accept the default type of experience with the ribbon. I can customize it to what I find to be a little bit more, a little less overwhelming for people. So these ribbons can be changed and their properties set over here. I like to sometimes add some transparency to them so that the emphasis is still on the data, but that the ribbons are there to kind of just help. They're suggesting kind of the guidance of things. Still get this great tooltip. There we go. Yeah. And then, yeah, Lauren's mentioning she likes them being able to quickly and visually see how quartiles differ between groups. Oh, that's a really cool idea if you kind of group these things by quartile. Yeah. So yeah, some customizations you can do with the ribbon chart are nice. We'll come back to this in a second too, but yeah, keeps those ranks in order, and you can kind of spot things that went up and down a lot more easily. There we go. That was my comparison. This is what I was thinking of. I put them side by side. Yeah, this would have been easier. Again, we showed it. So if we go, oh yeah, the last one is the waterfall chart. And this one for me, at least when I first started looking at them, I was like, okay, what's going on? It took me a second to understand it, but I do find that a lot of executives are more used to looking at these as well. And sometimes they'll refer to it as a walk. It is not always, but often time oriented. There's some concept or element of time in it, with the idea that we started at one place and we ended at another, and there were steps along the way. And so how did we end up, kind of going up and going down, end up in the place we ended up, right? So to kind of show at the end here, you might notice there's this total that's a different color. You can choose whether that's gray or some other color. But it always starts that a key thing is I would kind of wish on this, and maybe you could, I wish they'd color the 0, really bold, because that is always the kind of the origin point of a waterfall chart. And what it's trying to express to us is that in January, we went down this much. In February, there was almost no change. We went up in March, bad April, okay, May and June, really bad July, really bad August. And then, we ended up starting from the origin way down here, which is sad. These are dollars, so I'm going to assume this was a bad thing. Maybe it's measuring debt. Doesn't look like it. So yeah, those waterfalls can be used in some pretty interesting ways. For example, if I kind of set it side by side here with of the ribbon chart, it can start to maybe help explain the same types of ideas of at the beginning of this time period, January of 2024, we had this many sales, and then at the end, we had this many sales. Actually, let me show one thing that I skipped over on the customized ribbon page, that you can, for these ribbons or any stacked column chart, you can turn on total labels over here in the visual settings, which are I really like these because it's nice to know what the segments all mean, but I really don't want to add up these 5 things in my head over and over. So we went from 7 million to 12 million. Well, what's the difference there? Now, if you're going to kind of breaks things down, showing how the different product lines, we'll call these, contributed to that difference, and that's helpful. So, but what if we just kind of wanted to know, like from September in our France sales of 1.8 million, and then in October we had a great month, they went up to 3.4 million. There was an increase of 1.6 million in that. If I click on that particular bar, you can see that, okay, here's what that 1.6 million net increase represents. But, how did that how did that happen? Well, there's the thing about showing anytime you show a total or an aggregate or an average, there's noise hidden in those aggregations, right? This is a cool way to give people insight into that. So hidden in this awesome performance of France in October is that, well, this Amaria line was down, almost $1 million. And everything else just had such a great month to make up for that. So it's very cool to kind of show the relative change of things, and it can show those kind of relative contributions. That's the word, yeah. Because I mean, you could just break it down with um, a bar chart and show like, okay, of 3.4 million, dive into that, and what would that, so give me something that adds up to 3.4, and here, I'll just show you, and then Amaria would look like a positive contributor to that, but you might not be detecting that there was so much change. Like, it looks like they do. Actually, this is cool highlighting, that they do pretty well to capture that. So if you were just filtering that bar chart, you might not see it. That's great. I'm going to just check on the chat, just make sure there's no questions or anything like that. Okay, good. Love it. Thanks for this is awesome engagement. I'm loving this webinar and the participation. Thanks so much for everything you're doing there. So, oh, how did I add that recent blue chart? Okay, thank you. I just quickly, here's what I did actually. I copied and pasted my waterfall chart because it already had like the data elements I cared about in it. So I copied and pasted it, dragged it up here, and I just went over to the visuals pane and changed the type of chart that it is. If you're like me, anytime I try to add a new chart, I often accidentally change the chart type of one that I'm trying to add. So just took advantage of that little factor. Yeah, nice, cool. Kind of a quick way to, I want to see this same visual and same data in a different visual. Yeah. All right, good deal. Let's go for a little bit. Okay, we got these 4 new types of charts that you might think about how to incorporate. So how can we sort of combine these with other types of visuals to maybe tell even more of the story? So many of you know this, but one thing you can do with charts is you can add a customized tooltip to them. So rather than having to take up space on the page like I kind of had to do before, where I was showing that walk, giving it its own real estate over here in the lower right, you could make it where I'm just going to show the ribbon chart, because let's say I think that most people probably won't care about how we got there. They just want to see the different, see the totals. But in this case, with my customized tooltip, when I hover over a particular segment, I can see a waterfall walk of that information and a helpful title to kind of tell me, okay, here's kind of how the products changed and this is specifically for France in October of 2024. Yeah, so, and that will work. Let's see what happened over here. Kind of interestingly, like our pink, we had a big drop in pink from here to here. What is the driver of that, right? several categories way down, a few of them up. So rather than just I'm going to call up the U.S. sales rep and just blast them for being down. This gives me some context going in of like, all right, some of these areas were up. What happened with Montana? Let's focus on that because that was down the most. Um, yeah. So okay, Lauren, let me just make sure. What sort of quick takeaways would you hope that a user gets from the ribbon chart? I don't know if that's a question more for me or somebody else. In this case, I think it just helps explain differences very well. So trying to show like prior month information, what caused this big drop in Mexico from 2.2 million to 0.9 million. So um, yeah. Now, the way that we did this, some of you have probably seen this, but there's a hidden page that has this chart on it. And the chart, like it's just a waterfall chart. The canvas size is set to a smaller size. So in the canvas settings, you can set a custom size. I think they even have a tooltip size if you want that. But it's great to know in any Power BI page, you can change basically the pixel size of the canvas. So once you create that, it just achieves this then through like drill down filters. So it's important, how your drill down filters can be right here. Well, we have a filter for the country, the month name, the month number, and the year. To when it receives some kind of drill down filter, that's what's happening at the moment the tooltip is rendered. Like it knows what year and country we're looking at, year, month, and country. So once it knows that, then it's able to kind of draw the right chart. I also did a little bit of DAX to make the title show what I wanted it to show. I guess I bring that up so that you're not really limited to only using a waterfall. You can use any kind of, anything that you can make a page you would drill through to, you can make a tooltip out of it. There are some gotchas with these. People need to know that just because you're hovering over them, they're not really interactive. So they really you almost have to think of your tooltips as read only, because like if someone hovers and they're like, okay, I wish I knew more about Paseo, and they try to go over there, it left, and it's really dynamic. It can make a lot of visual noise too here. As we scroll around, you can just see it, flipping every which way. So again, like powerful idea, use with caution anytime we add more detail to things. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, to have it, what are some easier alternatives to get the same info? Yeah, Lauren, I'll come back to that if you don't mind, because I think the group might have a lot of ideas on that. Or we could just put those in the chat if other people do. Uh, I'd like to carry on just a little bit, but that's a good question to ask, because that it is quite a bit of setup to do this. Not only did I have to configure the tooltip target page, then I need to go into my visual, and under the general settings, you can change these tooltips. You can, instead of being the default tooltip, which is nice, it shows you kind of the numbers better inside of whatever you're looking at, I can set it to a report page. Yeah, it'll be based on what the settings are on the target pages. It'll tell you what your options are. I guess I left mine to auto because there was only one, so it knows what to do. A lot you can do with that, and yeah, there you go. Use it selectively, but I think it is one of the good things it's doing is it's showing them a little information and making more detail accessible. In a lot of cases like that, I would say maybe use a drill through, right? I mean, let's go from the ribbon chart page down to a more detailed page that focuses on a country or a time period, with and eventually maybe even making the tables available to them. Okay, a little bit more of an advanced technique that pulls in some DAX, but I have personally found a lot of positive response among business people, is drawing cumulative charts for business purposes. So this one is showing over time if our goal was this very linear goal to sell so much per month, how is our cumulative sales performing up to that time? And this is not a special visual necessarily, but you have to rely on a little DAX to make it happen. But I was going to just kind of show there are ways of using quick measures to get these measures. And also, I'll just say, I'll make sure when I kind of post this on YouTube and our community site and probably our own blog, like my own blog anyway, on the firstlight.analytics.com. I'll make sure the formulas are in there. There's, probably Copilot could help you generate these, but I thought it might be helpful to kind of just walk through the logic of at least one of these to show what's happening. So if it's trying to calculate this cumulative sales here in January of 2024, if I were to just draw a line chart with that's not cumulative and just say, show me sales, well, it's just going to show me what the sales were in that month, right? Pretty normal. Yeah, actually, let me just add that line here to this chart so you could just see it. Let's put sales on it too. Okay, there we go. Here's what the sales were. But when we want to know what we want it to do is okay, if you think about what's happening in that, right? When I ask for January sales, it does some filtering very quickly, as Power BI does behind the scenes. It says, oh, the user wants to know sales just for January. And yeah, and so it filters it down, right, to that 6.6 million. So the fact that a filter is happening when you hover is a really important concept. It's another kind of filter, just like those that come from the filter pane. Even those that come really, in this case, it's really reading them from the axes, the x-axis, right? It's using that x-axis point to say, now he wants to know sales from March. So the cumulative sales, just to kind of, we won't dwell, DAX can be obviously a deep rabbit hole, but we use the calculate function to change the filter context. That's what the calculate function does. For the purpose of this calculation, I want to alter the filter context. And we say we're going to calculate sales, that's true. And we're going to change our filter context in a couple of ways. Like first, we're going to lift off filters. So that's the first concern is if I'm here on January, I don't want it to just give me January's, right? I want it to give me January's, December's, November's, and everything else that's visible in the chart. So the first thing I need to do is lift some filters. And when you're lifting filters, the all function and some of the related all functions are the way to do that. So we essentially tell it like, okay, lift any filters that are being applied on the updated date column, on the year column, on the month name, on the month number column. It uses all selected because I'm really saying what we're saying then is lift any filters that the visual's applying. It actually keeps filters coming in from a filter panel or slicers or things like that. So it's kind of handy that you could make this, use this with other filters coming from the outside. Anyway, so that first step lifts filters. And then the second step kind of comes back and applies some more. It's like now limit the date just to all the dates that are on or after the max date that I have selected right now. When I hover over January, that's going to say January. This is going to yield January. And then this is going to give me all the dates that are on or after that particular date. So, you don't have to fully grasp that to use these measures. That's kind of the pattern of it. But once you get it down and you use this kind of pattern for it, we can reuse it in all kinds of situations. We can even perhaps we want to use country to do small multiples, right? And maybe kind of quote trellis these out. Now, what's interesting to note there is that the goals aren't at the country level, right? So no one country is ever living up to the goal by itself, but it respected the filters that were applied just for that particular country because of the cool way we did the DAX. So nice. Okay. I'm sure there are probably follow-up questions on that. And again, I'll kind of be glad I'm just going to drop this in the chat right now. How about that? Or this is the DAX that was in that particular that way it'd make it easier for y'all to see too. Yeah, so again, not a special visual, just a line chart, but people understand this kind of stuff and they're like, wow, that's neat. I've never seen it that way before. So then it's all thanks to the magic of DAX and Power BI's data model. Right. One other cool thing I'm excited to show, if we kind of come back to the scatter chart, and so Wilson, I hope things like this will be useful to you. We can take it. I mentioned that you can see things in 3 or even 4 dimensions. So here on this chart, we're seeing the same thing as before. We're actually seeing like cumulative sales on the x-axis, cumulative profit on the y-axis. And since we're in December 2024, which is in our data set, the latest we have data for. So it's kind of just showing me like, okay, what was my total? You could think of it as like, what was my total 2024 sales and profit? We're breaking it down by product line, and we're just using labels to kind of show, that dimension of things. And then we're also breaking it down by color. So we could see if we look at this guy right here. Oh, I don't want to give away too much. Okay, if we look at Montana, we could see that Montana, just for the United States, what its sales and profit were, through last year. Well, the reason you could think of that as maybe 4 dimensions of data, but one of the coolest things you can add to it is the concept of time. So it has this field built into it called the play axis. If you drag some kind of time dimension in there, it can do kind of this neat thing where it then drops a play button. It doesn't give you a ton of control, at least from when I built this originally, about how the dates get formatted and things like that. But see what happens when we hit the play button. Power BI basically is just walking, the visuals walking things month by month and putting things in their relative place on that month. I believe with the play axis, and I don't remember how, I believe you can slow it down a little bit if you want to. You also can manually come in here and adjust it yourself. So if someone hits play and they're like, wait, what happened there between June and July, Paseo, boy, I see Paseo really moved. Okay, that's cool. And then not only that, but with that play axis, okay, thanks, Mark. That's awesome. Thank you. And then when I click on a particular point, it will show me not just like where this thing ended up, but actually add some points of the history of how did it get here. And those points actually are interactive, which is pretty nice. So October, it was here, and then this is September. So I might kind of be asking myself, like, did something happen, with this particular dot in 2024? Was there a big event? And I mean, it looks like, yeah, there was a little spikes, maybe some slumps, but overall, I mean, it actually did okay at the end of the year, but it just kind of got off to such a slow start that it never caught up to other things. Not only that, but you can click something in the legend and it will kind of draw out all the points for that particular, uh, you know, in this case, country data category. That's obviously a lot of busy information, but sometimes the shapes of the lines are helpful. You might look for something and go, now this one's interesting. So I can like get kind of zoomed in here. If I just click that dot, let me look at this line only. And then there's another great feature that is available on a lot of charts that I would recommend you use as really as often as you can. In my scatter plot, if we turn on these zoom sliders, they've been around for a while now, so you've probably come across them. But the way I might use them to look at that particular chart, I can now use my zoom sliders to kind of get zoomed in just on this thing, okay, and kind of get rid of a lot of the rest of the noise. If I really was trying to do this kind of analysis, I'd recommend adding a slicer, where they could just like eliminate all the other countries or something like that, just to kind of get rid of the noise. But kind of, using the combinations of these things, like, okay, show me like I can zoom in and watch the play axis happen. My selected data point stays selected when I replay things. So maybe I can kind of, watch like, okay, look, there's some period here where sales happened a lot, but the profit didn't happen much. maybe we ran some kind of promotion, or maybe we had some kind of new product launch that we were doing a loss leader on this or something. And then why did profits dip down even though our sales were, profits didn't keep pace with sales there. So something was going on. So that, oh, okay. And Mark, you said right click on that point. Oh, yeah, nice. Okay. Okay. Uh, okay, now what? I can unmute you, Mark. Let's see here. This is awesome, man. Thanks. Explain diff. Is that on here? Maybe I have the November version. Am I short? Am I too far behind?
No,
Oh,
I don't
thank
know.
you. Yeah.
I don't usually use the play with the scatter plot, but
Okay.
I was thinking if it's allowing you to see these different values, and sometimes if you right click on a point and then it gives you an option to explain the difference or
Oh,
analyze the difference or something,
see.
some kind of verbiage like that. But I guess this
Yeah.
one doesn't.
Okay. Hmm. Um, I wonder, and maybe I might be pushing us too far here. What if I said the tooltip was a report page here, and then I hovered over it? I could maybe get my waterfall chart. Nah, it's too filtered down. I didn't design the waterfall for that. It's already down to a particular product, right? So it's like, okay, this product went up, and that's the total. So not very informative. So yeah, because it is such a detailed chart, right? Um, that anyway, but one of those kind of cool things. This is all built in. The scatter plot's all built in. I remember when I first set this up, I was trying to play around with like, can I change what's going on with this weird um, date display? I'm sure I could change the formatting of my date field so it at least got rid of the time, but I didn't know, and maybe someone else knows kind of where to go um, to make this a little more customizable or pretty. But um, if you can stand it, it's nice that it's all built in. All right, boy, it's already 12:45. See, time's just cooking. Um, maybe I will just see if there's any other hidden gems to make sure to cover. Yeah, DAX visuals. Okay, let's do. We had someone say, "Hey, box and whisker." So we'll make sure to hit that, and then we'll kind of just pause for questions and just discussion. We can just maybe make it where I can unmute everybody if they want to. Um, So above general type size. Oh, good idea. Okay. Hey, Mark's giving a really good pro tip there of whenever you don't know how to find a particular setting, there just don't forget there's this search box up here because obviously there's so many settings and some of them just bury you with categories to choose from here. So what if you just type size? Now I can see all kinds of sizes. Okay, those are my axis. You have to pay attention of what comes back, but you know the total chart size, the y-axis label size, title size, legend size, markers, all those kinds of things. So um, yeah, good to search for those properties when you go, I know it's in there, but why can't it show it to me? But just to go back to the box and whisker plots. So for those of you who are a little more familiar with statistical distributions, you can pack a ton of interesting information in here. I do think it takes a little training to um, to use well, because if people don't understand quartiles, then it's not very meaningful. Um, but at least to kind of show what is trying to represent. If you can remember when you used to when you looked at bell curves, I should do some slides on this. Haven't done it in statistics, or in class. And there was this concept of like, here's the median and here's the mean, right? The mean is the average. The median is that central value. At least we can start by kind of looking at these, the dot and the line here, and we'll kind of go out from there. Box and whisker. Ta-da. So here I don't have a legend on this, I'm sorry. Well, I'll hover over it and it'll tell me for Canada. It's telling me that the median is $111. So that's my line. And my mean or average, it calls it the average. Okay, great, is 119.31. So what that's telling me, if I understand how to read these things, is that if I did draw this as a curve, there would be some skew to it. The average is being pulled higher by we might call them outliers or just extreme values, right? The average is being pulled. It's not always a good measure of centrality in the distribution. where the median is if you kind of count everything together. So this is already telling me that there just tends to be some skew towards sale price, higher sale prices in Canada is what that's kind of telling me. And then what the bar is showing you the second and third quartile. I hope I'm saying this right. I may have to unmute somebody to make sure I'm not messing up my statistics. And then the lines, the whiskers, are showing the first and the fourth quartile. So essentially, like I think, yeah, if you go out, oh man, tell me if I get this wrong. It's like it's not the standard distribution, but it's your top 25% or something like that, right, of the values. They can give you a quick sense of how how much variety, what's the variance in these things, and does it skew a particular direction? So in contrast with Canada, where we know we've got some pretty extreme sale prices on some of these things. We can look at Mexico and they, tend to get down, and yet Canada can have a really wide range. It can be just as low as it is in Mexico. Whereas in the US, prices never get that low, but there's some very extreme highs that kind of pull the mean even farther from the median. Okay, would anyone like to volunteer and explain how you use box and whisker plots better than I just did? Because believe me, I did have to go back and research this at least when I first put this together. Okay, Lauren, are you a box and whisker plot user? Yeah. Here, I'm going to unmute you here, Lauren. How do we do this?
While
It's so
Brent's
new. Thanks for bearing with
working on
us.
that, I've used
Yeah,
some
thanks.
doing some process analytics and just kind of trying to get a picture of how long processes are taking to look for those outliers, which is a key indicator of like processes that we need to address to see why they are, for instance, 1.5 or more times the interquartile range. That's one way that I've used box and whiskers at a client. Were you able to unmute, Lauren?
I actually made Lauren a presenter, so
Oh, great.
hopefully, yeah.
Take it away, Lauren.
Hopefully she can. Okay, well, I hope she can, but she's just saying she's saying no, but it's okay. Okay, gotcha. Thank you. Thank you, Lauren. Well, at least you confirmed what we're saying. Yeah, it is great for saying, like you can think of an outlier. People kind of use that term a bit with a, loose definition, but there is a real definition to it statistically to really kind of tell you, okay, given a large enough sample size, these are the values that are weird. They don't fall into the right range. And yeah, we'll just keep things moving for 1 second. Span keys are one other, I think, neat. And they're certainly eye-catching visuals that try to describe like how does the distribution of a number across one dimension compare to that same number distributed across a different dimension. So for example, starting here at the top, we have all of France's sales, 24 million. But those sales end up going to customer segments. So it sort of answers the question, how much of France's sales go to channel partners, to mid-market, to enterprises, to small businesses, and things like that. Now, this and the box and whisker plots are custom visuals, you're right, that you have to get from the visual store. So this kind of tells us that, all right, France has a very small number that end up in the channel partner segment, which is it is a small part, a little more in the mid-market, but it kind of helps you look at it both ways. Like where do all of our government sales come from? Well, they're pretty evenly distributed, except less in the US, interestingly, kind of compared to the others, whereas the US seems to have a larger band here in small business sales. So Sankey is great for anyone working in supply chain. Thank you, Taguma. Yeah, it does. I know for me, I tend to read it left to right. You can kind of read it right to left too, which is helpful. And definitely in thinking about how to, how does a group start at one point and then end up at another point distributed differently. So yeah, this is just kind of one simple example of showing it. Again, I would recommend training your people. If you have the person who really is just used to looking at rows and columns, they might look at this and go like, whoa, I have no idea what's going on. if they're willing to spend a little time with it, there's a lot of information densely packed in here. Plus, it's attractive. It's cool looking. Okay, the last thing I was going to talk about, I'm not going to talk about, which was the Q&A visual. I'm not going to go deep into, I'll put it that way. That this Q&A visual is built in. The thing that I want to make sure our group knows is that the Power BI team, Microsoft, added some heft to this probably 6 months ago, maybe more, where not only now can you sort of like try to ask questions and get data answers, but that you can train your model on better Q&A. Now, this actually happens to add this add synonyms things, which is great. But I wanted to point out under the modeling ribbon, there's this Q&A setup. I noticed for several months, it kind of looked disabled. I think because the gear is gray or something, it's not disabled. If you click the Q&A setup, then you will see that you kind of you can teach Power BI how your different concepts in your data model relate. I think this synonyms is a really obviously a helpful thing, and we're kind of used to that. So if we thought about average sale price, how else might people refer to that? And I think it actually did some suggestions for me already of like average sale value, average sale fee, average sale charge. It's hard to, it's very hard to anticipate all the ways different people might refer to it, but you can do your best to anticipate if people just, let's say in oil and gas, if people just say production, they probably mean a BOE if you produce both oil and gas, or if you only produce oil, they probably mean oil. I think this is one of the neatest things they've done, though, is that you can create linguistic relationships. I think, yeah, so this is different from your data table relationships to explain how do these terms relate to each other. So financials are updated on updated dates. Okay, well, it's not, that's just explaining that it's like, how does this verb go with this particular object, which is this kind of metadata here is extremely powerful to explain these certain things are adjectives, these are prepositions, and creates rich metadata that not only can your Q&A visuals use, but also that Copilot will read and the Power BI service will process in order, if you are at the point where you can use Copilot with Power BI, then and by the way, to do that, you have to have like a premium capacity or a fabric capacity that is equivalent to a premium capacity. Anyway, if you have it, it'll help your Copilot get better. Even if you don't, the Q&A is available at all license levels. And if you have someone who's a little bit willing to be a guinea pig, I'll just put it that way, for lack of a better term, you could teach your model to do pretty much an ask and answer kind of experience. So you can teach it things basically. Okay, yeah, you know what? We're going to do this more in a future meeting. So because we're getting kind of close on time, and I want to leave plenty of time for questions. So I'll stop sharing now, and I'll make sure that this presentation, and I'll put the PBIX out there too. I'm going to put it on our community webpage. So let me show you where that is really fast. Or I'll put a link to it in the chat here in just a second. But in the meantime, if anyone has questions, maybe you could either put a chat in there. Yeah, Copilot available at the low price of $5,000 a month. Exactly. Yeah, if anyone would like to have a comment or a question, if you could just raise your hand and I'll do my best to unmute you. That's all I could say. Other visuals that you particularly like to lean on, or you find your people have responded to well, your audience? Suddenly quiet, but that's great. Okay, so Taguma, maybe you could share about our next meeting, please.
Absolutely. So the current dates are April 24th. Let's start with our next meeting. and we can cover the rest we can cover subsequent dates at future meetings. But right now, our next meeting is going to be April 24th. Because this one was supposed to be on site, the April meeting was going to be virtual, but we may need to switch that up. I'll get with Brent and we'll figure out what we're going to do for the April 24th meeting, but we will provide advance notice of whether it's going to be on site or virtual, and whether it'll be in Oklahoma City or Tulsa. But mark your calendars. 4/24, we're going to be talking more exciting things about Power BI and Fabric, because we are a Power BI and Fabric group. So definitely look forward to seeing you all there. You know how to reach Brent and myself. We're available on LinkedIn. I think Brent had a QR code on his earlier slide, but we're available on LinkedIn, or you can post messages in the OKPUG website webpage on the Meetup website.
Yeah, thank you. And Mark, I know you are not in the Oklahoma neighborhood necessarily, not yet anyway, but we will do our best. I'll say it that way, to get it virtual. The key for that is just making sure we have someone who can pay attention to virtual attendees. So I would
Right.
say usually what we do is at least our presenters are. There's usually some content that we kind of do offline, if we have like lunch roundtables and things like that. But we can often try to get our presenters on Teams, so you can people who are not in the Oklahoma area can also benefit from those. Plus, we want to record them anyway. So, yeah, Mark, thanks for being here and for your contributions, and Lauren and so many others who made this a great meeting. Thanks for being here, and we will communicate and see you in April.
Thanks, everyone.
This was
Have a
great.
great week.
Thanks.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Is it possible to have a video of this?
Hi, Carlson. Yes, I should have said that. I'm sorry. This has been recorded, and I posted in YouTube. I'll
And
put
how
the
about
YouTube channel in the chat.
as well as the files which were used for the presentation?
Yeah.
We will
Yes,
kind of-
sir. Yep.
Right.
Those I will probably put on our official community site, because that's the easiest place to host files. But I'll link to them from YouTube.
And just to be clear, the next meeting
Yeah.
we did virtual or be on site?
It will probably be virtual is the answer. Yeah. Yeah. We would love to do it on site. It's just much harder to organize an on-site meeting, so we'll probably do it virtually.
I never knew there was such a group like this in Oklahoma, but it's really great to have one.
Oh yeah, thank you. Can I ask where are you, Carlson? Where in the world are you?
I am in Oklahoma City right now.
Okay, nice.
And,
That's great.
been doing more personal research and development on Power BI and the use of data analysis in different languages to help. So gonna be looking for groups like this to share ideas and improve. And I'm happy to know there's something like this.
Oh, that's great. Okay, well, great to have you. I'm glad you got the news about it. And honestly, yeah, it'll just grow from here. It'll just get bigger from here, because there are hundreds of people who have come at we've been a group now for over 8 years. Wow. And so there'll be, we just were very inactive in 2024. So people get busy, and I think we might be adding a third leader, and that usually helps, get another leader involved. So if you're ever interested in leading the group, please let me know.
Come again?
If you're ever interested in leading or presenting, would love to have you do that as well.
I would like to try.
Okay, cool. All right. Just let me know.
I am. I'm letting you know right
Okay.
now. So.
Oh, okay. Okay, excellent. Do you when would you like to do it?
Well, I don't really know how it is. First of all, I'm still new here. I need to understand first of all how it goes. Probably have
Okay.
like one session with you to know how to present with them, and then
Okay, great.
communicating with people. And
Perfect. How about, if you don't, I'll just have to put it in the meeting chat, but just in case you don't have it, I'll put my email address in here. And if you would like to follow up, if you could email me, I'll definitely would love to talk with you more and get something scheduled. That'd be great. Thank you. It's I wanted to do it this time, just kind of get the group together again. You know what I mean? But it shouldn't be me every time. Plus, I'm out of content now, so.
honestly, just that I'm just trying to build myself in how to express. So I know most of this is it. So I like to take such challenges once in a while and see and prove myself better.
That is awesome. That is awesome. The group we learn, yeah, every presentation is valuable because somebody will be dealing with, or tackling similar challenges. And, you have a unique perspective to share about what you've tried to solve and the challenges you face and how you've overcome them. So that perspective is really valuable. So yeah, that's really cool.
Okay. Thank you very
Yeah.
much, sir.
Okay,
Very nice.
thanks. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.